There were just so many. God, like you say, a documentary. The thing I wasn't clear about was that Zion reference. That all got messed up in, I wasn't sure about how that worked out.
I wondered about that
So
too.
Zion in the movie, Zion is deep in the Earth's core. It is the last remaining city of the humans, and the fact that they call it Zion, that's the one piece in this movie that always bugged me. That just it, but then it was like, okay, but remember that place was named through the programming of what they've already been programmed with. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, it's part that even the name is part of the programming of their past, their religious constructs, etc. But yeah, I get it, right? Same thing with me. That's the one piece that's always been like, that's the one part of this movie that just there's something right there.
Yeah. But wow. They just covered so many, so it was extraordinary. It covered so much. From, it's hard to even say, the NPCs running around, the way that the virus can move into anybody who's around us who isn't awake. We've all seen that happening. And, Agent Smith's turning up with the next door neighbor and, moving here and moving there whenever they need to.
Yeah. No, there was an interesting piece to that to me, and that was the difference between and just because I forgot to hit record as soon as I started talking, we just finished watching the movie The Matrix, the original Matrix movie. You have the two different humans, right? So you have the humans who are as Tank says, 100% homegrown, naturally born, right? And then you have the humans who have escaped from the Matrix, that have all the plugs in them, et cetera, and have the ability to go back and forth. Because of course, the natural born humans don't have the ability. They can't go back and forth. They only have that where they are is their reality. That's their reality. And that was one of the things that struck me last week when I watched it again for the first time in quite a while, like actually watched the movie. That there are the two different types of humans, and the ones that were in the Matrix were, of course, at some point in time, totally within the program, totally slaves to the program, and in that dream world, who then escape and get out of it. There's something to that one piece right there that's kind of like, oh, interesting stuff. Stuff.
And somebody we were passing comments about, that was a great description, being bored, having a splinter in your mind. It's like what instigates the wake up? What makes some of us question everything and others stay totally asleep? And it's something it's just in there in some of us, that we have to keep, we can't buy the story. We just know it's not right. Lovely description.
Hold on, give me 1 second. Poor Star. Star, hold on, more. Okay, I'm asking you to start your video, so you should be able to start I had to turn your video off in the middle of the movie now. So you should be okay. There he is. So the bit about the splinter and Morpheus's whole monologue in that part, that it's about how something. It's been there your whole life. You know something. You don't know what it is. It's only once, Neo's gone through his whole life, and it's only been that last 2 years, as they say in the movie. You've been searching for me for 2 years, but I've been searching for you for my whole life. So for 2 years, all of a sudden, you just get to the point where it's like, something, but now you've got to dig. Now you've got to find, and he's, as a hacker, Neo's digging through all the stuff in the computers to try and find the hints of what is this thing that I feel? What is it? And I think that's the one thing that everyone here can say they totally resonate with. Like we all know that you You know it. You know it in your heart, in your body, in your whole consciousness. You know this is not fucking right. There's just something not. It's not real. It's not right. It's not what it should be. And as we've gone through our wake up process, you know, like it's like little steps that you go through. Like you start a little bit here, a little bit there, and each step takes you deeper in because you start questioning more and more and more. And each piece is another piece that comes in that makes you realize just how much you know this isn't right.
And it's how it morphs as the longer that you've become awake, you morph with your thoughts and feelings of how things are, and what you felt really stoic about 3-4 years ago completely changes. And that's what I'm finding totally at the moment, is that my ideas and my thoughts, my feelings and my biases are changing again. So
I have a question. In the beginning, my question to you, Danny, in the beginning when he, wakes up in the pod and all that, what is that? I mean, is that just us waking up, or what? So many levels there. I think
there's so many levels, and this is the thing about this movie, because there's a level of it, and for me, I've gone through like so many every time over what 18 years, 19 years of watching this movie, and I have seen this movie so many times. I know you guys were laughing, but I can pretty much quote the entire movie from start to finish. When you first see it, you take it at a level. But then there's other pieces to it. And as you start discussing it with people, you get different people's ideas. Like, is it a analogy for something else, etc. So on the base level of the fact of pods. Now, the one thing about the pods that interests me and always has done is the fact that I know so many people who have seen the pods. Do you know what I mean? Had dreams where they've been in the pods, where they've seen the pods. Now, my piece is, and I'm only going to give you my own personal perspective. It's all about, in this movie, the machines. The AI is built, and then the machines take over and write all these programs, etc. But it's all like, you always keep saying the machines, the machines, the machines. And I personally think that's the distraction, if you will, because it's always the word machine used. When we look at the pods, it can, and that one is talking about how they show them, and they talk the whole analogy of a copper top battery. They're harvesting your energy. In the movie, they make it a very, very straightforward harvesting your energy. Your energy is like electricity. Here's your battery. They're just using you like a battery. And of course, I think that's actually a fuck of a lot deeper. I think the harvest of the energy is not just to power their machines, to power their fucking world. No. It's much deeper, and it's about consciousness itself, and harvesting the consciousness, but you could even say the power of the consciousness. The pods themselves, though, we've hypothesized it. Is our body somewhere in a pod somewhere? Whether it's we got in it to go play a virtual reality game and we just got stuck fucking here, or we were put in these pods. I don't think it's as simple as is represented in the movie, but the pods seems very, very, very relevant to me, because it is something that so many people have experienced, seen, have had information on come to them. So how do you take it? Right? How do we take it? Take it as the fact of it just being hooked up to something. Being hooked up. It doesn't have to necessarily even be a pod. It's just a matter of the fact of you, yourself, the physical, wherever that is hooked into something that is controlling the consciousness, that is controlling the dream world.
I've been thinking about that too throughout the movie, Danny. And I wondered if the pod might. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I'm just realized that I had my microphone right up, like fucking up here, so I just pulled my mic down too. So.
But the pod kind of maybe represented that protective shield kind of thing, you know, that we come in with, you know, that doesn't allow us to see, right? And, you know, all those things were plugged into him like circuits, you know, while he was going through that slimy. Was that the pod that he was caught in at that time? He was in that pod, you know, when all the wires were hooked up to him, he was sliding. Yeah. But it kind of, go ahead, sorry.
No. I agree with you. It's one of those things where we can take things at face value completely, or we can look at it as in, like you said, it could be like the protective shield, but it could also be the prison shield, right? The thing that locks you.
Sure. Well, yeah, that would be it. The prison shield, absolutely.
Okay, David has his hand raised. He doesn't actually have his hand raised, but he has his hand raised for when I take a breath. That's your invitation, Dave, if you're there. I don't know. Someone said hand raised, Danny. Is that what David said? No? No. Okay. No, the Watchers. Okay, so David, yes. Okay. And it's so funny because this morning someone posted a video in the UnFuckers room, and I didn't even get a chance to watch the video. It was the title of the video that jumped out and caught my attention. It was the saying a picture of an asteroid, and the asteroid looks an awful lot like a skull, right? And this video was something about this, and immediately made me think of in the movie The Guardians of the Galaxy, when they fly into the head of the Celestial, and it's the head of this massive asteroid, planetoid type thing that as they're flying in, I posted the video, this little clip of the movie where they're flying into it, and she says, oh, this was the head of a Celestial, and now we mine it. It's like they mine the bits of bone and membrane and fluids that were inside this head because they're very, very valuable. And I started going down the rabbit hole because as you look for one particular video, you know what YouTube's like. It's like, oh, well, do you want to look at these ones over here? And it was about Marvel Comics and going in, and they talk about the Celestials and talking about the Watchers. Now, as much as I love Marvel, I was not a kid. I didn't read a hell of a lot of the comics when I was a kid, so I wasn't really aware of the Watchers as much. And so I started watching these videos this morning, and they're all bald. The Watchers are all bald. And I'm like, oh, isn't that funny how that representation is throughout fiction, is throughout whether it's books, movies, TV shows, Fringe, and we had this discussion a couple of months ago about it, the fact of Watchers. The observers, right? Now in this movie you see, in the Matrix you see two observers, Watchers. The first one is going to see the Oracle, and there's the old Indian man sitting on the bench. And the very first time I saw him, I was like, oh, he's a watcher, he's an observer. And then the second time is when they're escaping with Morpheus, and there's the old man lying in the trash, the old homeless man, and he's lying there. And it's the same thing. These watchers. Oh, sorry, I got like mosquitoes flying all over the place here. So David said, yeah, there's two different watchers. The Aboriginal guy who's connected to the Oracle, and no signals got to the agents. The other watcher is like the drunk guy in the subway toggle where the signal goes to the agents, and the agents were able to zone in. Yes. What I find interesting, though, is the representation is the same of an old man. And again, some of the stuff in different things I worked on with several groups of people. We saw the Watchers, and I've seen them now several times. And they're always an old man. And they're always an old man that fits into the area, if you will, that you're looking at. Whether if when I saw the old man in Morocco, he was dressed like the tribes. He had like the blue men. all wrapped in the blue, and he was very, very old, and like old. When we saw him in the Himalayas, he was dressed like a very, very old Himalayan man, but you knew it was a watcher. You knew as soon as you saw him, you knew it was a watcher sitting there, and that was his job, just to watch how things play out. Yeah, David, and yeah, the watcher at the entrance to the Men in Black's headquarters in the Men in Black movie too. Exactly, same type of thing. Same guy, old guy, just sitting there, observing.
Yeah, but watching for who? That would be the watching for who?
Observe, not watching, as in watch as a lookout. I'm an observer. All they're there to do is to observe. Who? That's the good question.
Behalf of whom?
On behalf of whom? For whom? Exactly. That's the unanswered question. You never really figure out in any of the shows. Well, okay, in Fringe they kind of explain it. But in a lot of them, there's no real explanation. All you know is that they're observers. And they're there, and they're eternal. They're always there. And they watch, and they observe. And Dawn, you're like flinging your fingers.
Maury, we just kind of realized something just now. We had our experience in Sedona where we're going up this fucking hard trail, okay, and we're crossing streams and stuff. And this is the first time I've been hanging out with Maurice, and he, has been able to keep up with me, right? And then I kind of got to see Maurice throw a little temper tantrum, and he threw out the old man card on me. So he goes, "God damn it, I'm old. I can't make it." And I was like, all right. So we turned around. So long story short, we're on our way back in. These old people.
Really old.
Really old. Now,
I was like a kid compared to them.
Yeah, Maurice. Yeah. Okay, this is how old they were. There are trees going across the stream that you would have to walk on, and you could fall off. They were walking across them, and the old man had those the stilty dillies to walk, and he was using them. That never happens. It's so out of place. In fact, when we were coming, it was after Maurice just had his fit. So we were on our way back in, and then we see that Maurice looks again, because Maurice just got finished telling me he was old, remember?
Yeah, I do.
And then some motherfuckers appear. And I told him, I said, I bet they're not even real. I mean, you just knew that it was so out of place. There's no way.
We got walking, Dawn. We got walking, and we weren't probably 100 yards past that. We were on flat land. And when you looked at me and you said, they're probably not even there anymore. And I looked at you and I said, you're probably right. That was so unreal what we saw.
But I was messing with him saying, the universe did that to you because you pulled the old man card.
Yeah.
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah, and that's my first introduction to frickin' Dawn. It's been a real ride ever since, let me tell you.
Yeah, I imagine, Maury. My heart goes out to you, dude.
Well, I'm a tough son of a bitch. I'm still there.
Oh man. Now, so through the movie, I was scribbling down notes. First of all, my handwriting is really, really bad. Like I've always had people have always told me I should have been a doctor because I write like a doctor. And I don't have my glasses here. I've just looked and I'm going, okay, can I read my own notes? So one of the things I want to talk about in the movie, residual self-image. And this is one that came to me. I've never really reflected on it at all until just watching it last week. I get to that movie when they're in the loading program and Morpheus is explaining to Neo, saying about how he looks and says, look, your hair is different, your clothing is different, and he says the way you look in the matrix is residual self-image. So what if, knowing as we do, is everything is a program, and there's so much programming that happens to us. My take on that is that it's our own residual self-image, how we see ourselves. Now, what if you do if all of a sudden social media and all the programming is put on you that you're fat, you're obese, you're overweight, you got bad skin, you got terrible hair, you're sick, you're crippled, you're old, you're fucking name one. The shit that is thrown at us all the time. How do we then view ourselves? In our residual self-image within the matrix type thing. Limited self, yes, Jane. Yes, Jane. And I literally just kept thinking to myself, that's really, really interesting. How you perceive yourself. So if your residual self-image, taking it as a literal thing, your residual self-image then could be very, very programmed. According to all the shit that you've been told about yourself, you're worthless, you're no good, you're stupid, you're an idiot, you're fat, you're ugly, you're no one wants you, no one loves you, okay, so imagine the residual self-image that you create. That was one of the pieces that hit me last week, and I was like, oh, that's really, really interesting. When we talk about stereotypes and how stereotypes tend to live up to but the stereotype, it's like chicken and the egg. It was the stereotype there, and we were programmed into the stereotypes, or was it the other way around? Unconscious consensual deception. Well said, Doppy. Well said. Yeah. So yeah, there was a few things. Now, like I said, one of the big ones for me was, of course, when I first saw this movie, the first 10 years, I guess I saw this movie, I took it as a literal in the fact of the machines. And I don't think that is right. And one of the points in this that comes up, and we were talking about it in the chat, and maybe to go with this, I should actually release the chat. Maybe I'll do that with the article, as maybe I'll put the chat log in there, because there's some really insightful comments throughout the chat as we're watching the movie. Let me try and find my thing. Okay, so when Smith has got Morpheus, and he's taking him off to the side, and he's got Morpheus trapped, and they're trying to mind hack him. And the things Smith says to him, this is a prison, and I hate it. And I want to get out of here. I don't want to be in here. And the two different parts of that came to me is first of all, is not only do we want out of this fucking matrix shit, they do too. Quintessential, they want out too. They're just as trapped here as we are. Now, the interesting thing that Smith says to him is about basically he wants to leave. He wants to go home. Now, he doesn't say the word home, but he wants to get out. But going on the analogy of the movie, artificial intelligence created the machines, created the programs. Therefore, him, Agent Smith, was created by the humans who created the programs initially. So getting out, what does getting out mean to him? Where is out? Where is out if that's what he is? He is part of the matrix. He was created within the matrix. His program was running within that matrix. So where is out? Unless, again, we're not talking about a machine. We're not talking about a program. We're talking about, and I used the word entity, for lack of a better word to use, an entity that has been brought in, that is also trapped within this program, this matrix, this construct. And it doesn't like it any more than we do. It's fighting the battle. It's supposed to win. It's supposed to try and fight this battle, but it hates it just as much as we do. And it wants out. So where the fuck is out? Where is fucking out?
Is that a real question, or is
Yeah,
that?
it is. No, I'm asking in the movie, using it as the whole agent's mission, where is out? He says he wants to get out, but where is out?
Well, it doesn't say it in the movie, but I would imagine, and I answered it in the chat when you posed that, Danny, where it came from. And where is that? Well, it's not indicated in the movie, so that's left to, fill in the blank. And as far as who he was relative to the being in the Matrix and being just part of the program, what is that? NPCs you guys talk about?
Yep, non-player characters.
That's it. Yeah, that's something I don't play with, but I've learned it. Yeah, those people that they moved in and out of would be NPCs, all right, but he's a different breed of some sort. I don't know, probably the equivalent of humans in this Matrix. That could be, I don't know. This is getting too complicated. I see it in my mind's eye, but I don't want to say everything. But yeah, he's not a non-player character. He's something else.
And this is the thing, and this is where I want to put it forward to everyone that next week we watch the second movie. Because there's some very big changes. And when you look at the first Matrix movie, in reality, I think that it should have been left alone. It should have been like one movie, that's it. It was only one movie. Leave it open-ended. And I have my thoughts. I have my opinion. And I have a feeling that between the first and second movie, the Wachowskis were gotten to. That, and I've looked at some of the timeline shit of 99 when the first movie came out, and the second and third movie were filmed in 2003. And in that time, you see some things start to go on in their lives. And I'm not going to point fingers at what, but let's just say radical changes within the lives of at least one of the Wachowski brothers. And then you have the second and third movies come out. And the message in the second, third movies are very, very different. Because the last soliloquy, if you will, of Neo talking to them is really standalone. It leaves it this really brilliant open question, as in, where we go from here is up to you, right? Talking to the machine, the programs, to the AI, whatever you want to call it. When you get into the next movies, though, as we will see, because I guess we're going to have to watch the second and third movies. When you get into the next movies, you're introduced to other programs. And that's when you realize that the agents aren't the only programs. And the other programs are very, very different. Radically different. And some of them are awesome, beautiful people, if you will. The kind of things that, and I'm thinking about the East Indian couple that Neo meets in the third movie with their daughter, who are programs.
Monica Bellucci. Beautiful people or what?
So, and they're just like the way they speak. They're caring. I mean, this is it in that case of like the Indian man and the Indian woman and their daughter, and their programs, and Neo recognizes the fact that they're not humans, they're programs. They love each other. They love their daughter. They have full empathy. They have, because that was brought up, is of course this Agent Smith, no empathy, just cold, no emotion, nothing, right? But all these other programs, you get to see them in the other movies, that they're very, very different, and some of them are very much. Well, I'm not gonna no spoiler alerts, because I know people like Anne haven't seen the second and third movie, so I'm butting my mouth quickly about who programs are. But it's not a one size fits all. It's not a one size fits all, like, oh, here's the programs, all the programs are evil. There they all are. They're all trying to take you over. They're all trying to do. Some of the programs are just the programs you're running in the background. And they're just there. And they're independent in and of themselves. So there's really, really some interesting pieces in the other movies. But if we take out the concept of the artificial intelligence per se, and this machine, because they keep talking about the machine, the machine, the machine, and substitute the word entity or being, or the story makes a little more sense. The characterizations make a little more sense, such as Agent Smith saying, I hate this place. I just want to get out. I want to escape. I need to get out of here.
See, I'm not convinced that they all really exist at the end of the day when this is said and done.
Say that again, Dawn. I couldn't hear the first bit you said.
I said, I'm just not truly convinced. I mean, I'm not convinced that they all truly exist at the end of the day when this is said and done.
Okay, all who?
Well, some of these beings that claim that they've always been here. I kind of think they were created in parallel realms and brought in, but then I know there's other groups too. So, but I also think there was a time where things were much different and we were used to programs or whatever that were beautiful. And I think to discount that would be wrong.
Okay, so in the movie, that is one of the big pieces of this movie, and they actually go into it a lot more in the third movie. Agent Smith says to Morpheus, you know, this isn't the first one we've made. This isn't the first one. The first one we made, we wanted to make it all lovely and wonderful for you all. And we created like basically a paradise, beautiful, everything's wonderful and light and fuzzy and rainbow farting unicorns and the whole bit. But your minds couldn't accept it. And so we lost entire harvests. We lost entire harvests, and it's interesting they bring up that whole harvest thing again. We lost entire crops of humans because the mind wouldn't accept it, and the mind pulled out, which killed the body. Right? When the mind unhooks itself from the matrix in that without being properly prepared type thing, i.e. with the landline that they use, then they're separate. The body becomes separate from the mind, and the person dies. And it's an interesting little story. Like, isn't that the type of thing you'd say to someone? If you're being a real fucking vile asshole, well, we tried to make everything lovely and nice for you, and you guys fucked it up. So we had to make this instead. The lovely blame game, right? Well, it's all your fault. We tried to make it all really perfect and peaches and cream for you, but, you know, you guys wouldn't accept it, so this is why we had to give you this horrible world. I was just going to say something on that, and it's just gone completely out of my head. Completely out of my head. And the concept of being multiples, though. And like I said, in the third movie, when Neo meets the architect, that's when you get a lot more fucking details about it. And you realize, no, it's not been one. It's not been two. It's not been three. Multiple times they've set up this matrix and run it. And it feels a hell of a lot familiar with all of us and the shit that we talk about continuously all the fucking time. What was one of the other things? Wish I could read my own writing. That's my worst problem. If I had my glasses, it would be easier. Oh, and that was the other thing that someone, and I never caught that. It was one of you guys who caught it. I can't remember who said it. When Morpheus is talking to Cypher, and they're sitting there at the screen, and Cypher's explaining all the code, and he says, well, we can't render it to images because images belong to the program. The imaging translator is part of the program. So all you can do is read the code. Therefore, you have to try to define the code and how it works. And I thought that was kind of fucking interesting, of the fact I'd never caught that the image translator is part of the program. It works for the machine. So you can't use their information. You can't use their images. You have to actually read the coding for yourself. David, yes, darling.
He has no mic. He doesn't have a mic right now, I don't think.
It was just my hand raised. So I don't know if you're saying, are you okay, dude? Because when you say you raise your hand, it means you want to actually speak. It doesn't.
Yeah, he doesn't have a mic.
You don't have a mic. Okay.
He wants your undivided attention, Danny, and it's the only way he can do it right now.
Well, he's got my undivided attention. I'm trying to. Okay. So David was one who pointed that out, because that's a really fucking interesting point. And there's something to that. I'm going to have to sit down and think about that, because there is something to that. The fact that you can't use the translation, you can't use their programs to define what's actually going on.
Well, it seems to me you get picked off that way, too. That's why you can't run in that awareness level.
I agree. Interesting shit, folks. Interesting shit. I'm still trying to read my notes. I think that's most of it. Anyone else? You guys want to throw some stuff on the table? Is there anything that strikes you? Anything that came up, especially sitting and watching it, for those of you who've seen it multiple times before, to actually sit and watch it, pay attention beginning to end? Jordan Maxwell says the Matrix movie was based on his work. I will withhold comment.
I think if you put a lot of thinking into this, it can really creep you out. But on the flip side of it, I mean, I know for me, it creeped me out.
Never creeped me out. It was a whoa moment, because it was one I can actually remember going to see this the first time. We actually went and saw it at a drive-in movie theater with a group of friends of ours. We had like 3 cars lined up. And I remember leaving, and it was the first movie, and then there was another movie on afterward. I can't even tell you what the other movie was, and I don't think any of us paid attention to the other movie, because all we did through the second movie was talk about the Matrix. And I can remember driving home and getting out of the car and walking up to the house and just going, whoa. Like, my whole entire sense of reality has just been changed.
See, that's how
Not as fact, not as taking it as truth, but as all of a sudden opening the door to contemplating that maybe, just maybe, this reality isn't what we've been told it is. And I can remember, literally spent days. I spent a couple of days, and that's all we talked about at work. There was a bunch of friends from work who'd all gone together. Work the next couple of days, we were talking about this and that, and talking about the whole thing of like, yeah, but what if? Yeah, but what if?
And for years later, after watching the movie and seeing how reality or the construct has unfolded and how we've learned more, how you realize, fuck, that movie was so spot on, and how the language has just become, I think, Anne, you used the language of the movie without ever having seen the movie before. You know, it just really does tap in retrospectively for me. You know, I saw the movie back when it came out as well. And at that time I was a homeopath, so I connected in some of the puzzle, but not the puzzle. I didn't see it the way I do now, you know, because it's that many years later. But I constantly look back and go, fuck, they just knew shit that we just didn't know, what I just didn't know at the time. Just that whole symbolism and how right on the spirit of this time that they were back then. Yeah, and layers and layers and layers. You could look at this from lots of different philosophical backgrounds, I reckon,
Yeah.
and still
Yeah.
see something in it. I just love the bit about the cat. It's not an important piece, but it was just so. Oh yeah, there's the cat again. They've just changed something in the
Deja vu.
code. Yeah.
Something has been changed in the Matrix. I mean, that's been a joke in our house for years and years and years. When you have a deja vu, you don't actually, in our house, you don't say, oh, deja vu. You say, they've changed the Matrix. Literally in our house, and I mean, even my kids will do it. Like Quinlan, when just a couple of months ago had something happen, she was like, I was at work today, and I swear they fucking changed the Matrix. Because I had such a deja vu. I laugh. Because you start thinking it in those terms, it becomes something that's like, stands out. It's not just something you just kind of go, oh, that's funky. No, you start to notice the deja vus and actually take note of them. Like, did something change? Was it the same? What am I missing here? Yeah, and Andrea, there is no spoon. Again, I cannot tell you how many times that gets used in my house. All the time. Unloading the dishwasher, be like, Kale, get yourself a spoon. There is no spoon. All the time. Yeah, Renee, stuff that we were unable to put a voice to at the time. And that is exactly what Helen, I so get what you're saying, because the fact of it's a movie. You watch the movie, it has an impact. And you go on with your daily life. And and then as the years go by, and maybe you see it again. So like for me, I can remember I saw it again. So it would have been like when the second and third movies came out. Before we're going to watch the second and third movies, we actually rented a VHS of the first movie again. Because like, well, before we go see it, let's watch the first movie again before we go see the second movie. And you sit there and you watch it, and even in that little time frame, there's like stuff that you went, oh, did you catch that? I didn't get that the first time. And then, a couple years goes by and same thing. It comes on TV. Something comes up. And I can remember sitting down and watching it in 2012. And I watched it in 2012. And I had this massive, because I hadn't watched it in about 4 or 5 years. So it's kind of like I kind of woke up to all this fucking shit. And then watched it again because it came on TV and was just like, oh my fucking platypus. What the hell? That's the thing about this movie. There are very few movies that have stood the test of time, if you will, like this movie, in that it's still relevant. And it seems like no matter when you watch it, it's more relevant, not less. Nothing becomes disproven. Nothing becomes wishy-washy. It has just as much impact each time you watch it.
And on a much simpler level, it's quite phenomenal how the special effects still stack up. They don't look stupid. Like some older sci-fi movies, you just have to laugh at the special effects, but it kind of stands up still from that movie, doesn't it?
Yep, it absolutely does. And you should actually sit and watch it properly on a DVD so you can actually see proper, because I know that the movie gets kind of glitchy when we're watching it like this, and it starts and you miss some of the finer shit. They designed a whole new way of filming just for this movie. And the creators that did, the guy who's the head of the filming, oh, his name's gone right out of my head now. He literally did stuff that has never been done in filming before, never been attempted to create some of those scenes. And it's kind of, even now, like you said, Helena, it still stands the test of time. Like it still has that effect when you watch the kind of pause motion and the 360 degree, and that it still has that same effect that it did the first time you see it. Unlike watching old Star Trek shows.
Hey Dee,
Hey, darling.
Just say real quick that I hope she can hear me. Okay. All right. I know it like so many years ago, I was in this store here in Bloomington, Indiana. It's like I remember being in this Kroger, and I think might have been after sometime maybe after I watched The Matrix first or second time, can't remember, but I remember being in the store and I brought it up and to this kid and this guy, and I said, "What do you think about The Matrix? If you've seen it?" It's like he said something about it being just entertainment. Can't remember his words exactly, but there's people who don't even realize that it's not just there to entertain you. They're not getting it.
Yep. And you could tell, and I joke about this because, like I said, I remember after seeing it the first time, the next day at work, so the whole gang of us went to see it from work. So like there was like, and you could see the people who I worked with who got it, who were like, oh. And the other people were like, oh, that was a really cool movie. So what are we going to do tonight? Like, it had no effect. There was nothing other than it was just simply entertainment.
But every good novel I've ever read can be read as a bog standard good old yarn or any level. And I'm reading it at a different level to the bog standard. And I'm sure there's people who are reading much more levels than I am.
Yep.
Every good story or movie, you know, like it can appeal to one. What was that one? American Gods, was it, that came out recently? About
I haven't seen it yet. I haven't seen that yet.
Oh fuck! On one level, that's just like severe violence and zombies and corpses, but there's so many levels to it. It's quite awesome. Best bit of TV I've ever seen.
Well, like Westworld, right?
Like, much better, fucking way better than Westworld.
Really? Okay. Well, I'm gonna have to watch it then. Definitely.
It's awesome. But, you know, I think all through literature as well, the old sagas can be read as a basic story.
Yeah.
And there's multiple symbolic levels and different, and everyone can get something from it. All levels can really get something from it, which is really the sign of a good writer or artist.
Yep. Well, it's interesting. There was another bit that came out in one of the science magazines that I read, talking about how yet another, and I was just like, oh my god, that we're watching The Matrix, and I meant to actually post it. Let me see if I'm pretty sure Nick sent me the link. Let me just take a quick look. Everything is fucking not working at the moment. My messenger's not working. No, he didn't send me that one. Damn it. Okay. And basically, it's how scientists have proved. Scientists have done an experiment to be able to simulate biology and biological mechanisms within a computer program using a quantum computer at IBM. And I'll find the link and I'll make sure I put it into the UnFuckers group, because this you sit there, you read that, and you're like, again, it's kind of like one of those things where you could take it on one level, but then you can take it on another whole level of reading this thing and go, really? And when I was reading the article, Robert Heinlein, who's one of my most favorite authors, his whole thing that he brings up in all his books is that truly great artists, be they storytellers, writers, authors, etc., movie makers in this case, actually create the worlds that they're imagining. They create those worlds. And in one of his books, or several of his books, they travel through the multi-dimensions, and you end up in the Wizard of Oz dimension, you end up in Wonderland, you end up in the Star Trek dimension, you end up in the Lensman dimension, etc. And I sat there when I read this article thing about them saying that they've created simulations of biology and life-like simulations, and using evolution, which is fucking crock of shit, but using evolution as a structure, if you will. They've created these simulations. I was like, are we looking at Robert Heinlein? And our concept of like a construct within a construct, within a construct, within a construct, within a construct. someone makes a construct, and then someone within that construct makes another construct, and someone within that construct makes another construct.
So postmodern writers would argue that they don't write books, or the whole point of it is not to write a story that everyone gets, but that every time somebody reads a story, they're recreating a new story.
Yep.
So not only are the writers or the musicians, whatever, creating the simulation, the world, every person who interacts with it is creating a kind of parallel simulation as well.
And you can actually sit there and from the cluster of all these simulations that are running simultaneously to then the n-dimensional spaced ones that are like, multiple timelines, because your version of what happened in that story is different than my version and how I perceive it, and that creates the multiple timelines of each simulation. Yeah, I know, we can really mind fuck our
brain explosion.
Yeah, it's a mind fuck. Yeah, exactly, and fractals. Yeah, and Tolkien cosmology, exactly, David. Yeah. Oh yes, very, very interesting stuff. And I love movies like this because they open the conversation. And it's not necessarily about taking things literally, but it opens the mind to question. And there's like little breadcrumbs along the way that help you formulate better questions each time you see it. So, next week we're watching The Matrix 2, and I guess the week after that we're going to watch Matrix 3. They're very different from this. In a lot of ways, they're very different, but there are pieces in each one. And so, like I say, Matrix 3, the bit with Neo and the Architect, got some serious fucking shit in there. Russian doll syndrome in action. Yeah, Maury, I agree. Yeah, so it's 1 o'clock in the morning now, and I think I'm going to go to bed. I think Anne's about to fall over, and Brianna's been strangely quiet. Yeah, we're very quickly losing the European side of the contingency of our whole European side. They're all passing out quick. Helen is like, yeah, I gotta go to bed too.
Hey ho, I'm alive.
You're alive. Okay, good. I'm glad.
Well, barely, but anyway, barely.
So, I'm gonna leave the conversation here. Does someone want to take over as host so you guys can continue chatting? Star, is that you nodding assent that you're going to take over host?
Shall I?
That's fine.
Okay, sure.
Okay. Star, you are now the host with the most. And I'm going to say, on behalf of everyone over here in Europe, we're going the fuck to bed.
Yeah. Sleep well.
Good night.
I love you guys, and I'll see you Wednesday for the Unfuck It discussion.
Oh, yeah.
Love
you.
Hmm?